Okay, beautiful soul tribe. I am really looking forward to sharing with you. This is really scary to talk about. I recently worked with a woman who helped me and facilitated a space for psilocybin, which is mushrooms. And it was a beautiful soul healing experience in which I watched myself die. It was extremely powerful, and I've taken some time to process through everything and to explore the different lessons to learn with it. And I just feel like it's an amazing opportunity to share and to navigate in the space. So that's what I'm going to do today. And I hope that you enjoy this podcast. Are you searching? Are you looking for something new, something different? Are you being called to your ancestral roots? The Modern Sages podcast is a tribe of women that believe in exploring beyond the broken constructs of society. We believe in empowering women to embrace the medicine within, all with an open mind, baby. Okay, so before getting started, I have lit a candle, activating the fire, the passion, the density that's within myself to share and to move. Burning some sage. And actually, I came across a video that was fascinating about using different herbs instead of sage to smudge, depending upon where your ancestors and your culture and your heritage is connected to. So I'm going to sit and experience more about that. I also have a lemongrass scent. What are these things called? Incense stick. It's a sweet grass. So I'm just going to add a little bit of smoke, activating and clearing and cleansing this space for this experience to come in. And I feel as though it's a little bit intimidating to talk about, but I know that it's something that I hold very dear in my heart, and something that, as I have shared with people personally, it has felt that each of them have taken something from it on their own in a way that they really felt like they needed. And so that was a big experience for me of trusting, okay, there's a reason why this happens. And it's good to just share your experiences. And I am one who typically is extremely private. You might not think that on the podcast, but this is kind of my outlet. It's my space to share who I am, share myself, in an intimate yet a very sacred space for me of allowing people into my heart, because I am so private. And I know that's not necessarily the best thing, but I'm working on it. And even yesterday night, me and my husband and my brother-in-law were pulling cards. And even whenever we do that, every now and then, I'm still very private about what I experience while they, reflect and dive deep into their souls. I feel very surface level. And that's just not who I am. That doesn't serve me. And after we talked about all that, they're like, well, what about you? You never share. And it hit me that, and I always just wanted them to be able to get lessons and experiences and to share and to integrate. And I was just there to hold space for them. And then I realized, like, yeah, I don't really share a lot, and I'm pretty private in that space. And it's not that I think I'm better, but I don't want to be a burden to somebody. And I'm like, well, we already have so much we're talking about, but different cards we're reading. And so why would I take up more time for you guys? And they were both like, that is so stupid. And I'm like, oh, okay, you're right. I just have this listening to myself as being small, as being mousy. And I do have a small voice. I am very quiet. But I'm working on stepping into a jaguar energy, this roar, this passion, this excitement. And I have been sitting with my journey with psilocybin, my plant medicine ritual for about 5 or 6 weeks now. I believe it's been about that. And it's just been something that I think about and I implement and I'm aware of that is part of who I am and what I've experienced. And so I wanted to first dive into, I know that there are a lot of people who have like these preconceived experiences about mushrooms and about how people only do them in drugs. And it's like this way of unhealthiness. It's bad, it's wrong, it's heavy, it's dark. It's only for drug users. And we have such a negative connotation for plant medicine. And even just acknowledging it is opening up this space of awareness, this space of just trying to release that heavy tension and that worry and that stress, because there is so much beauty that does implement along with plant medicine. And I actually have 2 different podcasts that I have shared about plant medicine and about embracing it and the why. So if you find yourself hesitation or like judging this whole experience, maybe go listen to those. Or if it's not for you, then it's not for you. That's all. So moving into this new space is Mother Earth has given us beautiful, beautiful, beautiful experiences. And in ancient times, when someone was in a dark depression, when someone was having medical problems, when someone was struggling, they used herbs to heal themselves. They used tinctures and liquids and herbs, and they would use them in all different kinds of ways. But they didn't have prescription pharmaceuticals. They didn't have those things to take when they had a headache, or if they were feeling depressed, they didn't have depression medication. They went to these wisdom holders in the tribe and the community who were able to help them navigate these dark nights of the soul. They helped them navigate those things which held them back, those things that felt heavy that they didn't know how to move forward with, because we are a spirit having a human journey. Being in the body, experiencing all the things of humanity is part of our journey. It's part of our calling. It's part of what we came here to achieve and to experience and to accomplish. And yet we didn't always have the tools and we don't always have the resources in our own space. So that's when we can look to others to help us. Nowadays we kind of have it kept by, if you're depressed, going to a doctor and getting depression medication. And nothing is wrong with that. But there's also a disconnect between being connected spiritually and physically. There's this disconnect that can take place. Same thing when we go to therapy. A lot of people think, oh, well, I have to only go to therapy because they have the answers. They know the brain. But there's a lot of gatekeeping there too, where there is deep wisdom that's passed down that can be healing for your soul in deep ways that maybe westernized world doesn't understand or will not allow that to be a space, an inkling, an understanding. And a lot of people have come to this understanding as far as there's this show on Netflix. I can't even remember what it's called, but it's about mushrooms and about how in the past they started using microdosing as a way to help people heal and to move forward. And then the government shut it down as being bad and wrong, and you can't experience that. You can't do that. And really, I don't really want to get like censored or anything, but I feel that there's a lot of a lack of money that they can make in that process. And I'm not saying either is bad or wrong. I'm just pointing out my experience, my interpretation, and what it is that I believe and what it is I have strongly come to experience in my own body and in my own awareness. So as I have been on this journey with shamanism, with healing the past, with healing a lot of deep soul wounds that I experienced, many of which did spark from the religion that I grew up in. And I have no qualms, no heaviness it has been a great stepping stone for healing for myself, great things that I have had to look at and to explore and to heal on my own. And I would not change that for the world. And as I have journeyed with Candace in this podcast, I have shared much about that, about going into through breath work, entering into this different plane of existence to bring in understanding and healing and light and love, and then bringing it back into my body to help heal, to help navigate, to help grow in ways that are safe and secure for myself. And as I started working at the herb shop last year, I became very much so even more involved in being around herbs. And one of the things that sparked my interest was psilocybin. Now, this is mushrooms. So as I've been kind of sitting with that, I've been unsure, like a little bit worried, like, oh, if I do that, am I bad or wrong? Am I going to be a druggie? I've had all these hesitations and these worries that were just stupid, let's be honest. In my perception, I get that that's not the reality of what society has taught us. And it took me time to deconstruct my own experiences or my own preconceived thoughts about it. And yet I just kept being called to wanting to experience it. So as we moved back to Utah, and in my other recent podcasts, I've also talked about that. I hit a really dark night of the soul, a space of, heaviness, unsurety, just a lot going on inside myself. And I remember one day, we have some friends out here who I've had sessions with. Curtis and them have done some different kind of plant medicine ceremonies together, like ayahuasca or grandmother prayer, I should say. And it's just really beautiful. They experienced a lot of healing, and we met up with them one night for ice cream. And I was just kind of saying how I've been really drawn to want to participate in mushrooms. And he's like, I got a friend for you. I just barely reconnected, and she's moving and grooving in this space, and it showed up for her. And so for me, it's been such a beautiful healing experience where it just kind of put into place. And I've said whenever the time is right, if it is, it will pop into my lap and just show up, and that's exactly what it did. So it was just really beautiful. So I wanted to dive deeper and share with you my experience in plant ceremony. And I just want to use the word ceremony or journeying, and that is incorporated and intertwined with my mushrooms. So I've just been really sitting in that space of like, okay, I feel really called to this. I do not know what to experience. It's kind of terrifying. I haven't really done anything like this before. And in preparation, I was told to really sit in prayer and meditation and just ask what is my intention, and what is it that I need to come with a prayer in my heart to understand and to explore and to experience. And so that is what I did. And during that time of reflection, I just felt this really strong and profound space of understanding why I keep holding myself back, what it is that keeps me held back in this space of disconnecting, where I will step into my power and to channel and to do messages and to explore. And then all of a sudden I crash and burn and feel exhausted. And then it's like getting the motivation back up to keep going, to start over, to do it again, and wanting to grow and expand and to teach different things. I've just been feeling really called to become a teacher in this way, and still having a lot of limitations that have held me back. And this was when I was just coming out of a couple month break as we moved, and I was navigating this dark night of the soul and all of this. Just there was so much going on. And with that, I went with the intention of that. So as I showed up, I also had the intention of connecting to my ancestors, like I experienced and expressed 2 podcasts about Ingrid. And her showing up and her in my space, my great-great-grandmother, and her experience with coming to Utah, to building up Zion and feeling disappointed in many ways, leaving her family, her friends, her way of life, her connection to the earth, and coming back here really pushed me into that space, and it really awakened me into some of these memories and this energetic memory culture that was still here from her experience. And so there was a lot of different things going on. And as I went to prepare, I was able to make it into a tea. So I loved that intention of being able to grind that and to set my intention, to sit with my heart, to allow that fear, that scarcity, that stress to kind of be let go and to be released so that I could just embrace the experience. And it was a little bit scary and a little bit worrisome, but it was okay. So as I partook of this tea, at first we were kind of just talking, and it was just her and I, very intimate, very beautiful space. Oh, it was so perfect for me. Diving into this energy. And as we sat and spoke of intention, we really just got to know one another in a deeper way. And all of a sudden, my body started feeling very heavy. It started feeling very dense. It was like my spirit was kind of spinning in my body, is what it kind of felt like. And so finally I was like, okay, I'm starting to feel heavy. And so I was at that point, she kind of let me lay down, and she brought me these really nice warm heating pads, had this all room that was cozy. There were lights on the wall, and I really wanted to connect it to my ancestors, which comes from Sweden and Scandinavia. And on the walls, she had a full moon, and then she had the lights that kind of look like the northern lights. So as I was laying there, it was just absolutely perfect for inviting my ancestral heritage, as well as just being in the space of cozy, safe presence. And I began to close my eyes. And as I closed my eyes, I could feel myself starting to lean into this experience. So we have our conscious mind, and then we have this, what's called a lucid. It's like your lucid state, where it's almost like you're aware of things, but you're not as attached to the physical outcome of things. And then you drop down into this, people call it like tripping. Then you drop down into this trip where you are able to experience more more elements, more dimensions, different things about yourself. And I'm still learning much about all of this. So I'm still, a little bit of a baby in this area, but that's how I would describe it. So I was hitting this lucid state where I was aware of what was going on, but I also was like kind of fighting, diving into this trip, this trip energy. So I'd close my eyes, and I remember at one point like seeing these Viking ships, and I'm very visual just in general, so I just allow that to be what it is. And I was trying to get on the Viking ship, but I had this beam, and it was my left hand, and it was clenched like really hard, where I couldn't move it. It just felt so heavy. And when I closed my eyes, it was like I was dragging this giant beam with me. So there was no way I could have got on that Viking ship, because this beam was holding me back, and it was so heavy and so intense. And so I told her, I said, hey, I have this beam, like my arm is a beam. We need to get rid of it. And I would kind of joked, and I was like, we just got to cut off the beam. And we were just laughing about that. And that's one thing that I love too, is that every time I would laugh, she would laugh with me. And I was also worried, like, okay, I'm going to be in this state of plant medicine, and you're just going to be totally here, totally sober. And I was almost worried, like, are you going to judge me? Are you going to be like, what's your thoughts about all that? So like I had all these fears. And that too is a big fear that I have, of people judging me and holding me just judgment is a big thing. So anyways, she starts rubbing my hand and massaging my arm, and she's not making it bad or wrong. She just says, okay, well, what could this beam mean? And I was like, I don't know. So she ends up like grabbing this book that she has that talks about the beam, or that talks about different parts of your body. And so she's reading this paragraph about what that could mean. And every time she reads it, I'm trying to focus, but like everything she's saying just isn't hitting with me. And I'm like, wait, can you read it again? What was that? What were you reading? Like, and it was just so funny because it was like so hard to focus on that. And so finally I understand some of it about not giving yourself permission to enjoy and to experience the pleasures and the excitement and the playfulness of life. So we kind of sat with that, and then she kept reading, and it was about finances and about money. And so she asks me, she says, hey, like, what's your relationship like with money? And I told her how it was, I tried to explain to her how we came back to Utah for this business. So like my husband has one stream of income, and then he had another with this company that we are working for that he no longer is. But we came because we were supposed to have like essentially one income and then another one from that same company. So it's like 3 sources, 3 streams of income. And we were just down to that one. So I was trying to describe it to her in the very best way possible, but I just could not get my words out there. And finally she's like, you mean like 3 streams of income? I'm like, yes, that's the word. And then I just kind of started giggling. And then all of a sudden it just like really hit me. And I started crying, and I said, I feel really bad because I feel so lit up inside, like when I'm channeling and working with people and podcasting, and when I'm in this space of flow, like I feel really excited and very happy and very lit up inside. But it almost makes me feel bad because I see Curtis and he doesn't seem as lit up about life as I am, where he likes what he's doing, but it's not like a fulfilling soul mission. It doesn't bring this excitement and this light like I experience. And it makes me feel guilty. So it makes me feel like he gives me the space to do all of that. And he supports me in that way, but it feels like really bad in a way because I feel guilty. And so she sat with me and we talked about that a little bit more. And she said, well, who said that he wasn't happy? And I'm like, whoa, I don't know. Like, he's never said that. But I just see him not as lit up and like excited about life. And so I made it mean so many things about myself. And it was like in this lucid state, all of a sudden I could see things from a different way, a way that wasn't emotional. It wasn't attached to an outcome, but it was being able to see it from a different perspective, which with Candace in the Shamanic practice that we talked about was like riding the wings of the eagle, or seeing things from a different perspective, a higher perspective of the soul versus the heaviness. And I was able to see that in a different way. And I mean, that's something that we have talked about. And I do want to help him have those things that ignite him and make him feel alive inside, because that's what I believe we come here to experience. And so that was a beautiful conversation. And then all of a sudden we were talking about money again. And it was like I could see money in this box. And in the world, we're created to be stuck in this box. We're created to be here and to be nowhere else but here in this box where we're stuck. We have a mortgage, we have car payments, we have credit card bills, we have all these different things. We're constantly spending money, and then we're constantly feeling enslaved or trapped to money. And it's something that it's been set up to be that way. It's been set up to be in that space. And so I could see like this box, like going back and forth, up and down. of being in the box and being stuck and like just running the rat race, running the race of finances, of how that can be such a burden in the world. And then all of a sudden it was like I could see the northern lights and I was staring at them at the ceiling. And then it just helped me remember that money too is a frequency. And I was like, who even said money is money? And who even said that, like, we normally don't even touch it. It's just this number in the bank account. But like, who even said that that was a thing? And who said it was that amount? And why does it have to be like that? Like, we don't ever even touch the money. So essentially, it's just this made up bullshit of money, of what it is. Like, that's essentially what it is just, it's this, what is it? It's nothing. And yet we define so much of our life on this illusion. We hold ourselves captive in this box of this illusion that is nothing, and yet it's everything. And being human, we do have money, we do have finances. That is part of being human. I'm not saying that. But the heaviness, the box, the stress, the negativity that we place upon it is a problem, because it holds us back. It holds us captive. It keeps us in this box energy versus like flowing the northern lights, which is a higher frequency. It's a higher state of consciousness. It's a higher state of being. And we forget that all of the time, or we compare ourselves to how someone else has a lot of money. How come I don't have money? How come I'm not doing things right? What's wrong with me? And it can be so easy to be captive in that space, but it holds us back from our authentic truth of creation, of what it is that we want to create and how we want to move forward and what that looks like. So I had all these big experiences about how money is just this illusion, and it's this frequency, it's this energy of give and take, of receiving, of giving joyfully. And so I was like, oh, like, whoa, money. Whoa. Like, that's all I could keep saying was like, wow, what? Like, what? We do all that? And it's just energy? And like bridging the two is like so interesting. And I'm still in the space of understanding and bridging all of that. But that was my first initial experience. And then all of a sudden, I was saying that and then she was laughing because I started giggling really a lot. Like, that's so funny that we get stuck in a box. Like, we hold ourselves back so much. And she's like, what? So you're not going to pay me in gold? Like, you don't have gold with you to pay me? And we just started cracking up laughing. And she's like, well, what if I put on these butterfly wings and I dance? Well, then will you give me gold? And all of a sudden I'm like, whoa. She's like, oh, what did I hit with that? And I got all teary-eyed and I said, those butterfly wings, that's my grandma. And she's like, what do you mean? And when my grandma Burling passed, a day after her funeral, I went to the gravesite to see if the gravestone was there. And I sat in prayer just above the area. And as I was praying and just saying my goodbyes, I opened my eyes and there are these two monarch butterflies spinning around each other like they're dancing right in front of my face. And my grandma had been on her own for like 24 years or something like that. My grandpa had been gone for a long time. And I knew that that was part of the sweetest part of the reunion, was her being reunited back again, because she adored him to pieces. And so having that been said, it was just a sign to me from them that they were together, they were safe, they were having a really great time being reconnected. And it brought a lot of peace into my heart. And lo and behold, the morning before, she had been helping her daughter clean her room and decided that she was going to bring these butterfly wings for some reason. She had no idea why, but she was going to bring them. So she's like, well, tell me about your grandma. And I started giggling. And I just said, my grandma was like this tall. And it was like 2 feet. And she's like, oh, really? I'm like, yeah, she was like really short. Like, she was this tall. And she started laughing. She's like, so what? Was she like the size of a garden gnome or a fairy? And I just started laughing. I'm like, yeah, pretty much. And it was so comical. So that kind of comes up. And then all of a sudden, I'm talking to her about my grandma in a deeper way. And she says, well, tell me more about grandma. What's her name? And I said, her name is Fern. And she's like, well, what did you like about Fern? And I said, oh, she was the best grandma I could have ever had. She was beautiful. She was amazing. She was so kind. She cared so deeply about everybody. Like anyone who knows my grandma will say those things. Like she was seriously an angel. And then I said, but she always made herself so small. And I just started sobbing. And I said, she always worked and never thought she was going to make it to the kingdom of God. She could read scriptures and pray all day long. She could serve people and love people. And she just never thought she was good enough. She never thought she was going to make it. And it broke my heart to see that and to feel that. And I just said, she always tried to be so humble. And then she asked me, well, what does being humble mean? I'm like, whoa, what does that mean? And who said you had to be humble? And what does being humble even mean? And a lot of times we think of being humble as meek and mild and being mousy, where we can't be bold, we can't share our opinions, we can't say the things that we want to say because we're in fear that someone's going to reject us or judge us, or that we're going to be called into some patriarchy system that's going to tell us we can't do that. That was my experience, and it held me back, saying, oh, I have to be so meek and mild, and I have to, give all glory to God, and none of it is me, which there is truth to that. But if you don't show up in life, who will? God can't work through anyone if they don't show up. So you are part of it. And so to me, it was like, oh, wow. What does that even mean? What does being humble mean? Why do I have to, what? I had that aha moment again. And I just took that in my space and just felt that love and that reassurance of me being able to find what being humble means to me. And if I wanted to even have that in my space, because it didn't define who I was, it doesn't define where I'm going to be on the other side. So I was just really sitting with that. Like, what does that mean to me? And I'm still kind of sitting with that. I'm like, oh, I should probably really focus in and to just kind of see how that resonates and dive deeper into that space. As I said, there's a lot of integration from this experience. And then I had to go to the restroom. And she said, when you go to the bathroom, look in the mirror and look at your eyes. Just look into your eyes. So I go in there and I'm kind of just like feeling very light. And I go to the bathroom and then I look in the mirror and I'm looking at my eyes, and all of a sudden I see this Viking woman, like fierce, like fierce and ferocious, and like just moving and grooving, and like have this dedication and purpose of fighting and honoring her land and her people and her beliefs. And so I see this Viking lady, and then all of a sudden that face turns into a jaguar. I'm like, whoa, that's crazy. And then I go back out. She's like, what'd you see? I'm like, I turned into a freaking jaguar. And I just started laughing. She's like, wow, that's amazing. And so I kind of just start laughing again. So I lay back down and my arm was feeling lighter. This beam, this board that was holding me back, everything we discovered and talked about, it was like layers being stripped off of this beam. And the last thing I said is, I feel guilty. I almost feel guilty for being so young. Like it feels like a burden. Because when people hop on Zoom with me, a lot of times they're like, wow, you're really young to be doing this. Like, how did you get started in all of this at such a young age? Like, how did you know about this? And part of me has felt, at times it has felt like a burden, because it's a different lifestyle. It's a different way of life. It's a space of like, I have some people that I look at and friends and different people in my age and around my age where they go out and they party a lot, or they're out at concerts, or they're out at amusement parks, or traveling, or doing all these different things. And I feel like if I go do that, it's like almost too much for me. It's almost too much for my soul to experience in a lot of ways, or it drains me afterward for a few days. And I just said it just feels like kind of a burden at times to have this responsibility on my chest at such a young age, because people are like, oh, you're so lucky to know what you're passionate about right now. And I absolutely agree. And then at times I'm like, but like, what about this? Like, what about being able to just like experience my 20s and have fun and not worry about this, like this thing? And she said, well, who said that they were happy? And I was like, whoa, who said that? And why do I like, so it just was like all of these things, these openings, this space, and this lucid energy that I was in, of just seeing the northern lights, of seeing things that flow, that move and grow and flow. And in this presence, in this space, in this energy, it was so freaking beautiful and just so eye-opening of like, oh yeah, who said that? Why is that? Why do I do that? And just like being very aware that everything is energy and attention, and we make it mean more than it has to be. So finally, my beam is gone, and she's doing tuning forks and drumming around me. And all of a sudden I tell her, I say, I'm ready to go. Like my beam is gone. And then I said, I'm being called to go in. And she said, okay. And so she went to the other side of the room just to allow me to experience my own journey. And in this journey, it was like I was this little tiny being walking down these stairways into my heart, into the depths of my heart. And during that time, as I walked into this space, all of a sudden it was like I was a ballerina in a music box. And that ballerina, she was able to move and to navigate and to dance, spinning through. The best way to describe it is like that train on the Polar Express when he's going through the puppets, and they're like these scary puppets staring at him. And it was like I was in this train, and all these big puppets were staring down at me and looking at me. And it was like all of my biggest fears were showing up for me right then and there. And I was aware of what each of these puppets represented. And yet I didn't have to allow that to stop me from dancing through this train. And when I would look at it, it's like they would be really big, and I'd look at them, and then I'd move to the next one and look at that one, and then the next one. And finally I was out of this puppet train, and I was on this trapeze, like when they sit on the hoops. And it was like I was like on this trapeze, just like above the ground looking down, and it was like so high up. And the music that was playing during this time, it felt like it was like more of it just felt like circusy. The music did. It was like very, I don't know how else to describe it. So all of a sudden I'm in like this circus, and I look over and I'm watching all of these other people in life light up. Like all of these performers light up, and some of them looked really crazy. They didn't all look like what you would say a perfect person would look like. They had their own quirks, their own unique talents as to what they were doing as they were showing up in the world. And it was extremely interesting because I would watch them, and as I would watch them, they would light up. And as they would light up, they would perform, and they would share their talents, and they would do the things that helped them feel more expressed. And it was absolutely beautiful to watch. And I could so clearly understand and to see that, like, as each person lit up, they were connecting into their flow of creation. And I was taught that, like, we all come here to create. And when we can access that truth or that authentic space of creation, whatever it may be, it's going to be absolutely different for every single person. And when we stop comparing how someone creates to how we should do it, or maybe being like, oh, I want to do this, but I can't do that. This person does it perfectly. And and coveting other people's creation talents, finding that creation for us and finding that flow of creation. It's kind of like in Soul when he's playing the piano and he gets into the flow. It was very similar to that. And it was as if all of a sudden I could see that we all come here to create. An expression of creation is different and it's beautiful and it's unique and it's holy for each and individual person, but it's all the same light. There's no division of that light. It's the exact same brightness. It's the exact same connection that each individual person has. And I could see how there was this thrusting, this heaviness, this energy of like this woman, like thrusting her hips, like this heavy, like just this negative connotation of even what sexual energy is. And of course, we know that sexual energy is life force energy, it's creation energy, it's everything inside of that, our sacral chakra. But it was like I could see it from a different perspective, that like the world places such this burden, this heaviness at times, this overindulgence, this, I don't necessarily like that word, but like we define so much of life through that energy. And it's been a big thing in the world. Whether we have enough or not enough, or how do we express ourselves, what's true to us, what's not. And sometimes we can get caught in this heaviness that like we forget where that energy comes from. And it comes from that creation light, that love, that higher perspective, that beautiful flow of energy that we can tap into. But if we get so stuck in the heaviness and the thrust, the stiffness, we lose the freedom of creation. And we lose the freedom of why we can create and to experience joy and pleasure in our body. And we forget about that. And so that was something that really stuck out to me as well. And then all of a sudden, I'm still sitting here on this hula hoop, like, flip. Like, why the hell am I still on this hoop? Why can't I move forward? Like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I light up and stay lit up and excited about things and passionate? And all of a sudden, it was like, you really want to see? And I was like, yes. Do I want to? Yes. And it was like, all of a sudden, I was taken up higher. And I was a leaf on this beautiful tree. I don't know if you've seen the Avatar tree, the Avatar ancestor soul tree. I don't know what they call that, but it's like this willow tree that has these beautiful, bright, flowing lights. And when they can connect into the tree, they can connect in and talk to their ancestors and everything like that, those who have passed. But it was like I was one leaf on this beautiful, huge, magnificent tree. And there was blinking lights, and it was shining, and it was beautiful, and it was bright. And I look over at other leaves, and those are other souls who are here. And we're all connected to that same beautiful essence, that same beautiful light, that flow of energy on the willow tree. We didn't have to do anything or be anything different. Like we were an extension. We were a leaf on this beautiful tree. And as I sat there, all of a sudden, I could just feel this beautiful space of one, of everyone being united together in this space of purity, in this space of oneness, in this space of creation, being engulfed in this light that we can channel and that we can flow if we so choose to. But it's part of what we came here to experience, all things at once. So having that been said, I look out as I'm a leaf on this tree and I see this, it's like a rhino, a seal, and a walrus all mixed in one. And there were like 6 or 7 of them floating around this tree, just like swimming by. So it was almost like we were in like this plasmic, there was like this plasmic energy around us that these animals could swim around and to be in that space. And it was so beautiful, just like so euphoric, like, whoa, look at those creation. Like, that's just so fascinating to me. And it was just so beautiful and it felt so good. So all of a sudden, this song comes on, and the words say, if not you, or if not now, then when? And all of a sudden, it was like I had this electricity pulsing through my body. And I was brought into that space because, like, 3 or 2 days before, I had a session with someone, and the grandma kept saying, if not you, then who? If not now, then when? And that really had hit home with me. And all of a sudden, that song was singing those same exact words. And it was like poof, like this pulsing in my body. And then the lady was facilitating it. All of a sudden, she pressed the song over again accidentally. She didn't mean to, but it was absolutely divinely guided for what I needed. So as I was in that space, I have so much going on right now outside. So as I was divided, as that song started over, all of a sudden, I could see part of myself step forward, like part of myself separated from me. And I was outside the tree at this point, looking at the tree. And I watched who I was step ahead of me. And then I watched that person die. And I watched that significant part of my being. And I held such beautiful space for this soul and for what she experienced in this life. And for all of the things that she was and that she wasn't, the lessons that she learned, the things that defined her, the things who made her who she was. And I just sat there watching myself die in pure honor and love and compassion for who she was. And I watched her fall to the ground as I held sacred space. And I had others behind me who were there also honoring her journey, who it was that she was. And all of a sudden, I saw the roots of the tree just come above me and take my body down into the earth. And it was like all of a sudden, when that body, that the body of who I was gone, there was this spiraling white light that came from the bottom or the heart of the tree. And it moved up in the spiral along the whole tree, the whole trunk. And then it bursted out, creating more light in this tree, this beautiful wisdom, this love, this light, this unified oneness of the universe, of God's love. And I just sat there in pure reverence for myself, for this experience. And my body was pulsing. Every single ounce of who I was just ignited and lit on fire. And just listening to the music, being with the tree, sitting with this new profound space inside myself, I began to just feel so grateful for Mother Earth. And I remember thinking how sad it is that we forget about this oneness, that we have become so disconnected, that having beautiful experiences like this are deemed as bad and wrong, when it was so soul changing and so profound healing for myself. And I just sat there in reverence, in such great gratitude and magnitude for what I had just experienced and witnessed. And once that song was over, it was like, I was brought back. And I remember looking around, laying on that bed, on the pads that I was on. And I started kind of giggling, like to welcome her back over, like kind of laughing about what I had experienced. And so I was telling her everything. And I just kept saying, please remember, I don't want you to forget. Please remember. I don't know if I'm going to remember. Please remember. And it was so significant and so profound. So I started telling her about everything I had experienced. And then when we got to the tree, I started laughing because once again, the tree is a box. It's my way of conceptualizing in this physical body what it is, because it's not necessarily that we're all a leaf on this tree, but we're all an extension of this creation energy, this great magnitude of God's love, of light, of infinite wisdom There's no separation, and yet we're here being separated in many ways. That's part of the journey of honoring that and not making it bad or wrong either. So we were kind of just talking about everything, and I was back in that lucid state where I was aware of things. I was coming back out of it. And all of a sudden I'm like, I'm really hungry. And she's like, well, let me make you some food. So she made me a grilled cheese sandwich with some pineapple. And so as she went upstairs to do that, I sat on this couch, and she had a painting of, I'm going to look up her name while we're speaking here. Frida? Frida paintings. I'm going to look it up real quick. But it was the paintings of that lady who she had like a unibrow, and she had like a unibrow, and she also had flowers on her head like a crown. Frida, that's who it is. Frida Kahlo. Maybe that's what it was. But anyways, so we had this painting, and before we got started, she's like, I don't know why, but she just always wants to be in the space with us. And so I found myself sitting on this couch, staring at this painting, having a conversation with the painting. And I had been really contemplating a lot about food, about being vegan, vegetarian, about eating meat, because I do feel that there's a lot of injustice, and a lot of the ways that meat is sourced is very unethical. And that is, one, terrible for the soul of that animal. And two, when we ingest it, we're bringing in that energy from the heaviness of the animal into our body to captivate us, to hold us. It hasn't felt really right for me in that space either. And then I try to get some vegan mock meats. And honestly, that didn't feel good either, because what are those things even made out of? A lot of chemicals, a lot of processed stuff that's not healthy for you either. So I was just like stuck. Like, I've been in this space of like, well, freak, what do I do? I know that sometimes, I know during my moon time, I definitely am low on iron, and I start craving more red meat. But throughout the rest of the month, I'm like, oh, I don't really want to eat red meat. So I just was like having this whole conversation back and forth of like, well, a lot of this processed stuff I feel like is absolutely terrible. Like when I had it in my body, nope, can't do that. And then when I have some meat, it's like, nope, that's not good either. So I was having this whole conversation with her about like, what do I do? And it was all of a sudden I had this awareness of the body. And at this time, she comes back in with this grilled cheese sandwich. She's like, what you doing? I'm like, talking to this freaking painting like you said I would. We just started laughing. She's like, well, what are you talking about? So I just started speaking out loud, and it was like all of a sudden, once again, the same concept of the money box. We have a food box. And the low frequency foods, the foods that are the cheapest and the quickest and the fastest to get access to, is also the food that brings density. It holds us back from being awake and alive in our body. It holds us back from experiencing the joy of life, because we're in this sluggish state of being. And it's also the easiest and the cheapest to eat. So it is designed to keep us down, to keep us in this false matrix, to keep us in this box of control. And so I started talking to her. I'm like, it doesn't necessarily matter if you're vegan, non-vegan, if you're vegetarian. Like, what matters is like what you feel at the core, but it is the energy behind it that you're putting in your body, the frequency of the food. And you can have good food in your body, and you can have bad food in your body. And it was like I've already had this awareness, but it was like, and you can't always have the best quality of stuff all the time. Sometimes that's hard to get to, or And so you can also like offer gratitude and grace for if you're eating the meat, to offer gratitude and grace for that soul, for that soul's body, and also bless it to help bring a vibration to help nourish and strengthen and plenish the body, while giving gratitude for the animal, for its journey, and for the suffering of the passing. And it was like all of a sudden we can charge the food, we can charge those things to bring it to the highest frequency to fill our body in the highest way possible. And it's just about the frequency and the energy of what we're putting in our body. Is this food going to help me access the northern lights? Or is it going to hold me captive? Is it going to hold me back? Or is it going to be a great space of learning and growth? And is it going to support the high frequency energy in which I want to bring into my body? So we were having this whole conversation, and it was like, once again, what's the northern lights? Am I putting the northern lights in my body? Do I have that outlook? Do I have that energetic viewpoint? What is that space? And how can I just diligently put that in my body as often as I can to what it is that makes my body feel good and energized and excited and healthy and happy, versus following, oh, it needs to be this and that and this and that. It's like, well, what's the frequency behind it? Does it feel alive inside or does it not? One of my favorite things ever is to eat berries. I probably go to the store twice a week to buy berries. But when I eat those berries, it helps me feel more rejuvenated and energized and happy. And eating frozen ones is not the same as eating fresh berries. And it's like, okay, well, that makes me feel good. So focusing on those things that bring that vitality and that aliveness is part of the human journey as well. So I had all this realization, which brought a lot of freedom for me because I was really struggling. Like, what do I do? What's my morality? What do I feel? It was something that was really hard on me. And all of a sudden I had this clarity and this understanding. So after that, I was pretty tired. We talked about the jaguar because the jaguar is a guardian in shamanic practice. And the jaguar is really connecting into getting rid of those things that don't serve you. It's stepping into this power, stepping into the purpose as to who you are and what it is that you came here to explore, and to really step into the space of like ferociousness in a way that honors who you are and your journey and what you're here to do. And I'll have to do like a whole podcast on the jaguar because there's a lot that I've experienced alongside that. But coming back into this space and just honoring this whole experience of this beautiful plant ceremony. It's been a while since I've done it, and I have felt like a different person from experiencing it. I have felt this new aliveness inside of me. Doesn't mean I'm perfect, but I've had this deeper, profound space of growing, of honoring my journey, of loving who I am, but also of wanting to share in a bigger perspective, to share in a way that makes me feel fulfilled. And also honoring that space of what it means to authentically step into truth for myself and not be filtered in being humble in a way that's a bullshit way of being humble, like in a way that holds us back from truly being ourselves, being our authentic truth, and sitting with what that even is and who that person is. So it's been really beautiful. And I feel like I've had a different relationship as far as like going to the grocery store. Is I find myself, instead of being like, oh, this is going to be really expensive, like offering gratitude, like, thank you that I have the means to buy this food, and walking around like just full of gratitude that we have this food, we have this ability to choose what we want to eat and to upgrade that food however we may feel, as well as have the knowledge of the lower frequency or tapping into the northern light frequency. And that's still something that I'm really learning a lot about. But I have this whole other understanding and excitement and interpretation of what it is that can be. And it has soulfully changed who I am as an individual, how I show up, how I feel in life. It's been such a beautiful and profound experience. And if just sharing my experience can help someone else open their minds to the beauty that Mother Earth has to offer in ways of healing the body, mind, soul, and spirit, like, why not? Why not step into that space and share and honor and trust? Because it is a beautiful aspect. When used with proper intention, it can bring in beautiful, beautiful forms of healing. And I think that's the difference is in life when we're so cut off from intention, from the divine being part of us, we the divine, when we have this separation of like our crown chakras closed and our root chakras closed, like we're just stuck in this realm of here, but we're not yet grounded, we're not yet connected, we're not yet in this flow above and below. So it is, we're just here having disconnect. And our food keeps us that way. Society keeps us that way. The school systems keep us that way. Religious confinement can keep us that way. Like there's so many different things that can hold us back from feeling this beautiful flow or this connection to the divine, because we are the divine, yet we're still here. It's great to honor, to create, like we're here to be human. So that's part of the journey. But when we forget that, and then all of a sudden we're partaking of plant medicine in a way of recreation, in a way that's not connected, yeah, people can have good experiences. But I think it also takes away the sacredness of what Mother Earth came here to give us. And we don't have to always have everything be so serious and so sacred. Like having fun is a good thing. But there's time and attention and energy put into specific things that can help bring in a lot of healing when needful. But it's the proper intention placed behind it. And when we are disconnected, when we don't know that we are disconnected, or we've stepped into the space of everything is not one, everything is different, we're not connected, we have to survive and just make it through the life, we hold ourselves back from being able to experience that beautiful flow and that connection and that embrace. None of it's bad or wrong. It's just being aware of this false identity that we're taught. We have to believe that it is who we are, when we can access different beautiful flows of healing that are so soul changing, if it calls to somebody. And with the proper intention, it can be an absolutely beautiful and powerful and wonderful experience. So to me, I'm just really excited to, to embrace more and to sit with all that. And it's been already a lot of integration and even sharing it this way. I'm like, oh, I'm going to sit with that more and sit with this and learn about these different aspects. And, I even have a really cool book called from Ted Andrews. It's called Animal Speak. And I love that book, but he also breaks down different animals and how they were upbrought and the gifts that they bring and the spiritual meanings. And I've been meaning to, and it's actually in here staring at me right now. I've been meaning to look at all the different animals that came in, the rhino, the walrus, the seal, and to learn about that as well. Because we are always in a space of reflection. Mother Earth is always mirroring things to us that we can learn and grow and implement, if we are aware of it and if we don't just take it for granted. So anyways, I hope you experienced some kind of heart-opening lesson, if it's your will, if it be that time, if it be that space. But it was such a beautiful, I just feel so honored and so grateful and so lucky. And I'm still sitting with that. And I don't know, I just feel very honored. And I hope that you might have experienced something from this journey that I had, just as I have, and as I've seen the profound messages that have come from it. It's just been so soul changing. And I just feel so grateful for Mother Earth and the wisdom that she teaches and the flow that we can connect into to have healing and proper understanding and support. It's just beautiful. So anyways, thank you for allowing me to share my experience with you and taking time to listen to all of this. And I hope that you have a beautiful day. And I'm excited to share with you next week about ancient China and about my experience there and about a visitation that I had of healing the land and healing the rice terraces out there. So I think it'll be a really cool conversation. Blessings. Do you feel called to connect to your medicine within? Have you wanted to strengthen your spiritual gifts? Are you looking for ways to incorporate the sacred into your everyday life? Maybe do you want to have like-minded friends in a tribe who can connect with you? Modern Sage's Soul Tribe is dedicated to spiritual seekers like yourself who are embracing the medicine within. Now, in this tribe, we are going to be doing moon gatherings, amazing spiritual gift giveaways, connecting to a soul tribe, as well as hosting mystery school classes. If you are feeling called to connect to the soul tribe, I will leave a link for you in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening to Modern Sages Podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel or follow us online. Blessings.